look around and say, yeah, we can celebrate. We have something to be happy about. What will that be for you?
I think the only reason why I'll be happy that we have something to celebrate is that we, the children, are like the future leaders and everything. And, you know, our dreams and aspirations are something that we should be celebrating.
Good. What would you say then, God knows?
Cool. I agree with her. There are some of us or some children out there, they don't really know that there's even Children's Day to celebrate, why they are full of afflictions and stuff that occupy their minds, and it also affects their mindset and their thinking. So I don't think most of them really know that Children's Day is meant to be celebrated. And as for what should be celebrated, yes, for the gift of life from God, yeah, it should be celebrated. And as she said, our dreams. This generation is passing away and the dependent generation is on us. So now we have to like be focused and determined. I think that's what it's worth celebrating.
Okay, let's ask to sponsor a child. How would you describe the state of the Nigerian child?
Gosh, I mean, the reason why we have the Child Rights Act being implemented in, I think, 26 states now is because there's recognition that they need protection, that the welfare of these our children needs safeguarding. So, yeah, I celebrate the fact that I think the numbers differ from article to article. 26 states have domesticated the Child Rights Act, which means that they're now legally enforceable. The rights of children are now legally enforceable in those states. Well, yes, so that's a beginning. And in Lagos State, we now have orphanage guidelines which are based on the child rights laws of Lagos State, and they are being implemented. So there are protective mechanisms being put in place more rigorously now to protect children, for instance, in orphanages. And for the last 10 years, we've concentrated far more on working with orphans in orphanages. We've started to expand to schools and early year centres now.
How successful has that been, though?
Well, it's fairly recent. I mean, the rigorous implementation is fairly recent, but it is actually taking place. You know, for instance, the free movement of children from one state to another has now been restricted. You have to go through proper procedures with state welfare officers before you can move a child from one to another. The adoption procedures have been tightened up. Due process is now being followed much more strictly. So it's taking place, but these things are gradual. They have become cultural.
Is that more so with Lagos State, or it's across the board?
Well, Lagos State has always been very much at the helm of change. But the states that have implemented it are responding, because, you know, the Federal Act covers those states as well. So they're trying to develop guidelines for operations in response to the Federal Act, even the states that haven't domesticated the Act. And, you know, we've got institutions like NAPTIP, who are federal, who are ensuring that child protection takes place, you know, across the board, across Nigeria. There are various other things. The reform of education is a very serious campaign between the federal government of Nigeria and UK Aid, formerly DFID. And they're concentrating first on their pilot states. I think about 6 or 7 of them: Enugu, Lagos State, Kwara State, Kwara State, Kaduna, Jigawa, and Kano. Is that 6 or 7? And they're reforming education. They're improving schools, hygiene, health measures in schools, you know, separate loots for boys and girls. They're reforming the curriculum. They're introducing school-based management committees, which are charged with child protection through children's committees. And so children's concerns can now be voiced in the wider committee of the school-based management committee. So children are now represented in school management. So their voices are now heard. And this is being rolled out throughout the country now.
Okay. Are you sure, do you want to agree with her that the children's voices are now being heard?
Yeah. I think for what they have done in recent years, I mean, you cannot compare it to what has been before now. I mean, there's been a lot of advocacy going on as regards children's rights. Okay, so the voices are being heard. The issues are being highlighted, issues of abuse, of rape of minors, of corporal punishment in schools, of exploitation, maltreatment, domestic violence are being highlighted now. We're reading in the papers. We have organizations like Tone talking about them. So I think, yes, the voices of the children are being heard through some of the advocacies that are going on in the country.
Okay, tell us about some of the rights of the children as entrenched in the Child Act.
Well, of course, these rights, of course, are contained in the United Nations Convention on Child Rights, that all state parties must ensure that the rights of the children are protected. They must enact administrative, educational, social, and legal framework to make sure that these rights are being protected. Okay, so over the years there have been a lot going on. Child Rights Act, that there was an offshoot of that convention. There's been advocacy and corporal punishment in school for all wards children. So there's been a lot going on. Okay. Again, let me say this. Okay, for one issue that I'm passionate about, that I wrote recently in my column, is corporal punishment in schools. I'm really very passionate about it. Even with the fact that Child Rights Act protects children against corporal punishment, these things happen in schools. Okay, and it is one issue that we really have to talk about. It's one issue that educators, parents, and the government has to they really need to focus on, because
what's your position on corporal punishment?
My position on corporal punishment is it's illegal, it is unacceptable in our schools, it must not be happening now.
So what would you recommend?
A comprehensive comprehensive discipline and management models that respect the dignity and human rights of the child. Corporal punishment is really not something that you want to go into because of the effect. I'm sure Tony is going to really talk about the effect of corporal punishment.
Before Tony talks about it, then I'd just like to be very clear on where you stand on this. How would you respond to people who say that spare the rod, spoil the child? Because our culture and our religion in Nigeria tend to move that way, and if something is seriously cultural, it's difficult to reorientate people. So what would you say to people who say that?
They cannot hold on to cultural vestiges. We must move beyond that. Beyond it is illegal, because the Child Rights Act, the penal code, there are provisions that you cannot see. Let me tell you before we go on. Corporal punishment has many defects or effects on the child. There have been cases where we read in the papers, not even reading the papers, it happens that a child will die as a result of being flogged. Those are issues that we need to talk about. But beyond that, let me answer your question. Culturally, of course, it's there. Spare the rod, spoil the child, or don't spoil the child. We cannot be holding on to that now, because as a country we have signed and ratified United Nations Convention on Child Rights, which says children must be protected from corporal punishment. So it is a law, and she's going to talk about that. It is a law in the Child Rights Act. Even in Lagos State, it's been passed in the State House of Assembly that you cannot. Corporal punishment has been banned in all schools.
Okay, let's ask a young person. Ifeoma, have you ever been smacked or spanked?
Lots of times.
A lot of times?
Yes.
Well, when you have adults saying that, oh no, it is illegal, it is against your right, human right is being abused, do you feel like you were abused, or did you feel like you actually deserve the discipline? Do you see it as discipline, or do you see it as contravention or contravening your rights?
I see it as discipline, but it's not something that should be done regularly. It should be done with love and care, not that you just take a cane and start flogging a child, testing that child will end up in the hospital. But disciplining a child, you have to use the rod, since it's written in the Bible and everything, but it has to be done, I don't know, at its minimum. Not
moderation.
Moderation, not just using cane and flogging the child to an extent. Some just end up in the hospital, some are brutally and everything. So I feel it's okay, but it should be done.
You feel it's okay?
Yeah.
let me just come in here. So, what is moderate for
a child, yeah,
might be extreme for him. So we have to be careful. Okay.
Yes.
So I was saying earlier, take for example in a class where you have a child that is sickle cell, that has a sickle cell anemia, and he comes to school, he hasn't done his assignment, and the next thing the teacher does is to flog. you have to. So what? It might be just so very modest.
It will
but
lead
can
into
trigger
a crisis.
Yeah,
for
it can.
that
It can
child.
trigger crisis in the child. So we have to be really careful.
Okay.
We have to be
Let's ask God to know before we
Yes,
ask
before you know,
yes.
yes.